Hello, hello. I am going to show you how I use Word document to make my books, to format it. This is where I write it. This is where I get everything ready for publishing. And this is pretty much how I start off, or I used to start off before I learned how to format before I even got started, which I'll explain why it makes a difference. So this is just technically a completed body of work. Something I'm never going to publish. I don't want anyone to see. Please do not read this. It's this is just a waste of 42,000 words, but it'd be like that sometimes. You write stuff and then you're like, I hate this. So this is what I'm going to use to demonstrate how I came from this to this. So this is from my book Freedom's Cost, Book 2, Nick and Myron series. This is how it turned out after I was done formatting it. I have my margins, I have my headers where my author name is on the even pages, my title is on the odd. I'm not going to show how I did that. That should be in another video. Pretty much, I just want to show you how I set up the formatting for the text. So this is your style gallery up here. As you'll see, I have different styles: that first paragraph, author, book body, chapter. So those I created, or I modified rather, versus this one where this is just pretty much the basic Word document template. So from here, you can either decide to create your own, which create a style, or you can modify. So here, this is technically under heading 1. You can tell because of the blue and the blue, but also if you could look closely, there's a black outline to the selection of what you have your cursor at. Here it's kind of difficult, but it is under normal. Now, another way to tell what your formatting is if you hit Shift F1 and you put your cursor somewhere, it'll show you the basic information. So I will bring this back up after I've made some modifications, because right now there isn't much to say. It's just the paragraph. There's no indentation. It tells me what my font is. Now we changed. You can see under paragraph, it's heading 1. So there's heading 1. There's heading 1. And then when I go to modify, you'll see that I have it aligned centered. There's no indentation. So this is a really good way for you to see how your format is set up for any particular text where your cursor is at. And again, it just depends on the cursor. It's not specific to any word or anything. It's just your body of work. If this was a different paragraph and I were to change the formatting, see, there is no real formatting, but it tells me I selected no spacing. If I were to do heading 2, that has its own formatting, so you can see the difference. I'll put this back on normal. Now, it's the whole process of creating something new. Let's say you haven't started writing. If you haven't, you are very lucky, because that means you don't have to go through and pick out everything from each chapter, of choosing between the first paragraph, how that's going to be formatted, versus the rest of your body of work. Here above the prelude, I actually have a page that doesn't have any headings, which is why it doesn't show up. It just shows as a blank space. This is why if you're writing and you're just going to write through, at least select heading 1, and that way you have somewhere a marker for where you're at. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my own chapter. So I don't have anything that says it's a chapter, so I can create a style, modify it, and I'm going to call it chapter. So the style is based off of normal. If I do heading 1, it's going to copy the style from heading 1. So that way, when I am done, I should be able to see it in the headings pane. If not, normal formatting does not show up here. So when you're making your first style, when you're making your first formatting, make sure you make sure you select the appropriate style that it's going to be based on. So I need this to be based off the heading 1. And you can always modify it later, but if you don't do it the first time, you're just going to be redoing your work. So I don't like the blue. I want to change this to black. Here I have my font. I can change it here, or I can go down to formatting and change it under font. I honestly don't use anything else between font and paragraph, and very rarely do I go to font. The only thing that I will do is select all caps. That way I don't have to worry about turning my caps locks on every single time I make a new chapter. It's going to automatically apply that format whether I use lowercase or not. It's going to automatically do it. So pretty much you come here for effects. Besides that, you can choose your font from here. I can choose my size from here. You can choose your alignment even. If I were to start off to the left, the alignment would be to the left. I'm going to go to paragraph, and this will give me more options. So again, I have it to the left here, but I can also select centered here, and this will update after I'm done. I don't want any indentation for my chapters already in the center, nothing special. The one thing I will do is the spacing before. So you don't want your title or your chapter to start off at the very top of the page. It's just ugly. Just doesn't look good practice. And then after the chapter, you don't want your first paragraph to be immediately underneath the word chapter either. So give it some space. Okay. And now when I do automatically update, anything that I have that was originally named chapter, seeing how this is brand new, it's not going to update, but I will show how to update the heading ones to where they will automatically update as you go along if you're fixing something that was already made. But since this is new, I would go ahead, create this style, apply it to my text immediately. So you can do automatically update. You can choose to only have it in this document, or you can add this style to every new document based off of this template. I'm going to hit OK. Now here is my chapter. Subtitle, can change it to chapter. Heading 1, back to chapter. Okay, we'll do normal. So I am going to update and show you how I do the modification for something that's already preloaded. So for heading 1, I'm going to modify. And just to be clear, all of these are heading 1s. Okay, they're all blue. Heading 1, modify. You could keep it as heading 1 or whatever you want to call it. I could actually use my style based off of the chapter that I made. I still have to fix it underneath paragraph. So just remember whatever it is that you wrote. I don't remember. I'm just showing you an example. And as you can see, it's previewing over here. Again, the preview window will be here for something that has smaller text, but because you don't have that amount of space in your preview window, which is why your words go away, but as you can see, it's automatically updating. So now with everything that had heading 1, it has exactly the same as my heading 1. This is what chapter looks like. This is what heading 1 looks like. Again, if you don't know what your formatting was set to, Shift F1. You can see the font. You can see what size I changed it to, which was 26. I have this one was originally the heading 1. It still is. It's off to the center, indentation 0, and this is my spacing. So while I was making my chapter, I could look at the spacing here. So this is a very good tool I like to use so I don't have to write everything down. Okay, And then I just go through. So now that I have a chapter, technically the heading one is my chapter, but again, this is what modifying looks like and how it's beneficial for something that's already created versus starting off with new text and creating your style before you get started. Okay, so pretty much all of this, I know for a fact, is under normal. There isn't any type of style associated with it. So see, it's saying it's a paragraph, that's all it knows, but it's not based off of anything because normal is the standard for everything else. It's going to be used for something like this title. They created their own particular settings, but it's saying that for the most part, we're going to use the information from the normal. So you can change normal, modify everything in normal first is my suggestion. My suggestion is when there's no formatting, it's already stuck on normal because that's how Word operates. So all of this, even when you do Shift F1 though, it's not going to have any information because it doesn't have a paragraph style. So the style isn't based off of anything. It's just named normal. I don't want to have to go through each paragraph individually, so this will be the first thing that I change. Again, do not create a new style unless you are starting off and you don't have a lot of text. But because I have 42,000 words, I'm going to update all of this at once. I like this font. I like this. This is good. I am going to look at my paragraph. Okay, so with my body of work, what I would normally do is I would actually have indentation for the very first line. And you can see that down here. I am going to move this a little bit. This is already set to single. I like that. Don't add space between paragraphs of the same style. Okay, and as you can see, everything was automatically updated. If I didn't do normal first, I would have to go through each paragraph and do it separately. Oh, I did compare. So we don't want to compare this to another text. So now you can see from reveal formatting, we actually have something that we have changed. You can see my first line is 0.2. Font, everything else. Okay. Most people know your very first paragraph of your chapter does not have an indentation, so we'll use the no spacing. And again, you can change this to whatever you want. The style type is a paragraph. It knows that, so that just means it's not going to show up in the heading. We are going to change the font. This single, everything is good, no indentation. This actually shows me what was before and underneath. So now the beginning of my chapter no longer has an indentation. So that's pretty much how I work backwards. When I am fixing a book that I've already pretty much written, I do the normal first. This is a long paragraph. And then I go back and just change the very first paragraph of every chapter to the no spacing. And that's why I'm like, this is very tedious if you do it in reverse, because if you do the no spacing and apply it to every single thing, then you have to go back and switch it to adding it to normal. Okay, so that's pretty much the gist of everything as far as the style guide. Again, you can either create your own or modify. I hate having all of this extra stuff, so I usually remove it from my style gallery because when I'm quickly formatting, I want to just use whatever's up here. You can do up and down, but it's just tedious. If you're not going to use something, just delete it. And if you accidentally delete something, you can go back and find every style by hitting this little button here. And here are all your styles. Now, I've already created styles in other documents. I'm not saving this one because I'm not going to use it. I already have what I want. But in options, style selects the show. So the recommended is what Windows recommends. You can go by just what was used, which are these. I can use just what's in my current document. Should be very similar to what was used. And I can also do all styles, which is how I find all of the things I made from other documents, which remember, you have to add it to the actual style gallery to find it. And if you hit show preview, it will show you how it's set up. So a lot of this stuff you're not going to use typically. It's nice to have, like, if you're doing nonfiction or you're doing some type of paper where formatting matters as far as your citations and whatnot. But for me, all you need to really do is just your recommended. You can figure out how you want it sorted. If you created a name for, I will show this. So in preview. So let's change the name to heading one. If I were to modify heading one, and let's call it chapter one, because I already have chapter. It's not going to show here necessarily. It'll show up here. But you can see when you're looking at your styles, all of the options, it's heading one, comma, chapter one. If I go to options and I hide the built-in name, which is heading one, now it's just going to say chapter one. You understand that it's heading one, but instead of having the built-in name, it'll be exactly what you chose it to be. So there, it's still chapter one. And now my heading one is there. Oh my, that should be back to no spaces. Okay. Um, I guess the next thing that I just want to show is when I am doing in between my chapters, my line breaks. If you don't know this, this will show you any of your characters. These are your unseen characters that signified. I pressed enter, actually changed this. The reason why this came down here is because of the natural spacing. This did not have enough room, but some of my other chapters might coincidentally run into other paragraphs. See? So for something like this is where the line breaks come in handy. Like, it's necessary. You have to do it. So in layout, I'll do breaks. I don't believe in doing anything besides next page. You can do even, you can do odd. Next page is just easier. And you can see the section break is next page. So my chapters, you will now see the full chapter formatted as it's supposed to be as far as using the correct heading. Because before, the indentation and stuff, this is not right. This isn't correct because my spacing is off. It's considering some of this as my spacing up here. So if I were to go back and do my next page line break, that's how my chapter is supposed to start off, and that's how it's supposed to look. So again, these are things that I recommend doing as you go because it's tedious to go back and have to fix it. And there you go, basic formatting. Here's a perfect example of where there's no line break. Now we're on the next page. This had a page break. Here's my prelude. I don't think this is set as chapter. I am going to delete this page break. And then when I go back to do chapter, it should look correctly. There we go. So sometimes you have to play around with the formatting. I definitely show characters quite often if there is something that is off, which you'll see when you're doing your headings. Sometimes that is a pain in the butt. You'll wonder why some pages are higher than the others, and doing the character, showing what is there really helps. Another thing that is important for me is showing comments. I do a list of comments. Oh, I actually have a comment here. That quickly gets me to wherever I have it set at. So yeah, I suggest definitely keep your navigation pane up. If you write comments, definitely write comments, because when you do your formatting, you are not supposed to upload it with comments. So I have one document that has all of my work that is completely unformatted, has all my comments. It's a rough it's a rough draft kind of. Yeah, so I have two documents of the same book where I have it where I have comments, but one without, because when you do KDP and you're uploading your ebook version, you are going to see comments as footnotes. Found that out the hard way. So you definitely do not want to have comments in your completely formatted book that you are going to submit. But when it comes to originally starting off with just your starter, let me track change cards. Okay, that's pretty much all I got. Is just showing you guys how I go through modifying my style gallery. Either modify the headings and the formatting that's already there, create your own before you start working, unless you don't mind going through one by one and setting everything up how you want it. The next video I'll do will be going over the actual margin sizes, the page sizes, and how I get everything set up for the particular size of book that I do. And that is it for part one. In the meantime, you guys go check out my website, hbnix.com. Find me on social media. Until next time, take care.